Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Matt Myers and I'm a Salesforce CTA. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to hack a Salesforce community. That's right. I'm going to hack a Salesforce public-facing community so that you know exactly why you need to make sure that your Salesforce community is configured correctly so that a cyber criminal cannot get access to all of your Salesforce data. I frequently talk about everything regarding Salesforce, including Salesforce architecture, Salesforce best practices, and Salesforce security best practices. My goal is to help 1,000 Salesforce developers and architects become Salesforce experts and have a successful career in the Salesforce ecosystem. All right, let's go and get started. So in today's video, I'm going to show you several of the tools that are used by someone that knows what they're doing to get your data out of Salesforce and hack a Salesforce community. The first tool here, as you can see on my screen, is what's called Burp Suite. Burp Suite is a common tool used by penetration testers and Salesforce and hackers alike to inspect and do some research on a site to gain more information about it so that they can see if they can penetrate that site. And this is the first tool I'm going to be using today to actually do a little bit of recon on a site to see if there's anything I can get from it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start up Burp Suite here, and then what you first see in Burp Suite is this screen. You only need to use the community edition really for this, but you can use the paid edition if you so choose. I'm going to go and start up a temporary project, and then I'm going to go and just get this thing started. All right, now the Burp Suite is started. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click Open Browser. And what this does is it attaches Burp Suite up into a Chromium browser so that all requests going through Burp Suite or through the browser can be intercepted by Burp Suite so that I'm able to inspect the site. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to navigate to a site. So I'm going to go to this site here that's our public knowledge base that's been configured specifically for this exercise. So I'm going to go to help.adapters.com. And now Burp Suite has actually intercepted all the requests, as you can see here. And now I have some information I need to start inspecting the site. If you can see here in just one of these highlighted here, you can see a request and response that was sent to the site. So as an attacker, I would then just start scrolling through some of these different requests to see if there's anything that I can get from it. The first thing that I would notice here is that there's this thing called SF Sites Aura is taking a message, and once I get that message, it actually looks like it's returning some kind of data back from the site via some kind of API. And this is the first piece of information that I think is important for you to know. Anything that's a Salesforce Lightning site, whether that's Salesforce Community or even Salesforce Internal, because it's a microservice-based architecture, is actually using a bunch of client-side facing APIs to get the data for that site and render that data. The issue with that, though, is because any of those APIs are exposed and you can't disable access to those APIs using an API-enabled flag on the Salesforce profile, that means any attacker can actually gain access to those APIs just by hitting the public-facing site. This is typically not a problem as long as your site is configured correctly, but if it's not, it actually gives attackers access to your Salesforce site. One other thing to note here as well is that this is not something special that is, I would say, a security hole in Salesforce. What this really is just displaying what would be visible on the UI anyway. Here, if you look at this request here, any kind of request you send, you have this top part here, which is this header, and then there's a message. In the message, what an attacker would do is this is basically functions that can be run against these microservices here. All you need to know is what the right functions are, and then when you run them, you're able to actually get a response back from the site. Let's go and take one of these, for example, here. Let's find a little bit of a shorter one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this message just so you can see here and notice it is URL encoded. So I'm going to go and grab another trusty set of tools I have here that's on another screen, and I'm going to do URL decode. And when I URL decode that, you're going to see here there's a set of these actions and descriptors, and this descriptor is running this method here, which is called create log record. I'm guessing that just creates a log record in Salesforce or something like that for what's being displayed on the UI. Now, let's say that as an attacker, I could then use Burp Suite here, and I could actually come here and run different attacks, navigate to different pages even. So if I, let's say, go to this getting started page, and now I'm starting to see some data. I'm going to get this knowledge article here. Now, if you see, I've got a little bit more information being shown here. So maybe this is useful here, and maybe this is showing me, let's say, some information about the article or some other data in Salesforce. And so then this is how that attacker could then just go around your site and start inspecting things to see if they are able to find out anything interesting about your site. So now let's just act as the attacker. So the very first thing as an attacker, what I would do is I'd come to your site and I'm just going to grab the top of this API here, and then I'm going to then send it to a repeater. A repeater in Burp Suite is basically a way so I can execute a call again and again and again that was executed, and I can just change things just to make it visible. So notice here, as soon as I click send, I now have the same results return back that were from the inspection from when I was running in the browser. Now, as the attacker, especially after I've done a little bit of research and I understand exactly what I need to do the attack, I'm going to now go ahead and I'm going to just remove this message here because this is not what I actually want to send from the attack. And I'm going to just delete all of that. And now I'm going to construct my own message for the attack. The next thing I'm going to come over here is there's this article that was written by Barconis. And what they do is they've kind of explained this attack. And this is not something that's brand new that they've even mentioned. This has been out for a while. A lot of people know about this that are the specific people, or even an attacker could find this out on their own. So they're not kind of giving you anything that wouldn't already be known. So the very first thing here is, if you notice in Barconis's article, that you are sending in the message these actions, and the actions have a method that you call here. So that's in the descriptor. And then you have parameters that you can send to that method that could be required for that method to execute. In this case, we're going to, just as a simple example, I'm going to show you the first descriptor I would run, which is this get config data. This would be the first thing that an attacker would run because it's going to give you all the config data for that site from the community. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually go over here, and actually I should not have deleted all of this. So I'm going to put it all back, and let's go into, actually I can just use this, what I did before here. So I decoded this. So now I've got the action, basically the actual syntax. And now I'm going to open up VS Code, and I'm just going to paste that here, the syntax for that call, because it just has to have actions and ID and the descriptor and so forth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this article, and I'm going to grab this method here for get config data. Then I am going to go back over here, and in the descriptor section, I am going to just paste that right here. And now I should be able to just take this action and throw it right back in. So I'm going to copy, go to another tool I love, which is URL encode, and code that actions again, copy it, and then I'm going to throw it back into Burp Suite. So here's my message. I'm going to just paste it right back in, and then I'm going to click send. You now notice I have just retrieved all of the visible objects that an attacker could see that are visible in your Salesforce community. Notice here, if I blow this up a little bit, now you can see here, these are basically all the objects available in Salesforce today that is accessible by the guest user. So that's a lot of objects that the guest user can see. That doesn't necessarily mean that there are records they can see, just all the objects. That's already a good start. Also notice here, this shows all the navigatable entities as well. So these are all the objects that I could navigate to via the UI. So that also can give, maybe I could try a little bit of URL hacking to figure out some more data. Most importantly here, notice here, the user object has been exposed. Well, maybe I want to try to grab some users and see if I can get some user data now. Okay, great. So the next thing here, according to this article in Barconis, would be they have now telling you how some of the different methods you can call, including one that's very important here that is actually to get record data or object data. So I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here, and this is it right here called get items, I believe is what it is. Yes. And so that what that's going to do is actually do like a list view and list all the records that are visible for any one specific object. So let me go into do this. I'm going to now click over there, and I'm going to go back to VS Code, and let's go into do this next method here, get items. One thing also call out here, you don't even have to execute one at a time. You can actually execute multiple actions at a time or multiple methods to get all the responses back to do kind of a multi-step attack in one call. So now I've got this get items. The next thing is I want to add some parameters. So this has already looks like a few parameters in here that have been added, but I'm going to take these out because I want to put some new parameters in. So I'm just going to delete these up really quick here, and then we're going to add some new parameters for this specific call. And then let's go back to our article here, and what kind of parameters do we need? The first one is entity name or ID. So that's going to be user. So I'm going to come back over here in params, throw that in here and do user. And then next one here is page size. It says number of records to retrieve. So let's going to see how many users we can get. So I'm just going to probably put, I'm going to just put 1,000 there for that. And that's a number. So we're going to leave it like that. Next one is current page. So this is what is the current page. If there are more than page size records, you just get the next page. So we want to do page 0 for the current page. Let's kind of do that. So boom, 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 0, 0. Great. Next value is get count. The return is whether the total number of records should be retrieved. Yes, we want to know how many records are available for us to retrieve. So we're going to go and put that there, 0. I want to do, that's a booleans, that's true. Right. Now, next thing here is what layout type. The only type right here is full. Gets us a little bit more data on the layout. So we'll just throw that on there as well. Full. Great. Next thing here is going to be enable row actions. Not sure what that is, but I'm going to go and put it as true, as it says here. True. And then last but not least, use timeout. And false, because we don't want this to time out on us. False. So now what I'm going to do is throw this into something that I like to use myself, just JSON parser, just to make sure everything looks good. Especially when I'm doing complex things. Looks like it was able to parse it. Now I'm going to throw this back into our URL encoder here so we can encode this. Okay, that's encoded. Now copy it and let's throw it back into Burp Suite. So over here, I'm going to take this message here that I had from before, and we're going to do a new message. So we're going to grab that, pull this guy up a little bit, and we're on the repeater. So pull that down, and we go all the way right before the OR context. The OR context is something that just gets returned by every site. You could even do this attack really even with a Salesforce authenticated user as well. So if you see the token does not equal null, that would be an authenticated user, but usually that would only be available to like a man-in-the-middle type of attack where someone has already compromised someone's browser, because otherwise it would just be the user that was logged in who already has the credentials making that attack. But as far as the community user, they don't have to log in, so therefore anybody that has access to the public internet could actually do this exact same attack I'm doing right now. So now that I've pasted in my action, now if we can see here, this is basically all of our user information that is in our org. And yes, this is our production org that is exposed this user data. Don't worry, after this video, I am going to convert everything so none of our data is being exposed. So if you can see here is a lot of sensitive information that we have. We have usernames, first names, last names, IDs. And now imagine, let's say, take this a whole nother level. Let's say this was account data. This is contact data. Maybe it was your user's social security numbers, birth dates. Maybe they're their financial or healthcare records. See how easy it was for me in just this few minutes here that I was able to now expose all their information. And look here, we've got all their custom fields and everything all exposed straight on this Salesforce community. And up here, I believe it even tells us, because we did the search, how many records there were available. But either way, we have now just exposed all of user data in just a few strokes. Now, if we come back to this article in Varconis, this is something I suggest that you look up, because if you notice here, there's a whole list of all the different undocumented endpoints that you can actually call here that can get things. The most important ones here that I think are interesting are you can execute Apex code. If you can inspect the page, see what Apex methods are being exposed, and then someone could execute those Apex methods. Secondarily, you also have other things such as here, you've got create records, delete records. You have even execute update as well. So imagine here, and if you can have the ability for an attacker to create cases, and then they can create and start flooding your Salesforce with many different cases, or even put cases that look legitimate into your Salesforce that have malicious URLs that your users will click on. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things that someone could do with these APIs, but that's only because the Salesforce org has not been configured correctly to be secured, so an outside attacker could not do this. The attacker could technically also do this via Salesforce URLs. They just get a little bit more power once they know how to use these APIs appropriately. So now if you want to try this for yourself, all you have to do is just come over here and you can go to portswigger.net. This is where you can get Burp Suite. You can just go and download the community edition here as so. click download and then just look up this URL that's going to be in the description below for Varconis and for this article, and then you can basically just follow the steps of this article and you can see the attack. I hope this video has been helpful to you so that you now understand why you need to properly configure your Salesforce security settings so that an attacker could not use these unpublished APIs to get your private information out of Salesforce. If you would like to know more information about this, or if you would like to understand if you are at risk for someone to be able to get your private data out of Salesforce, please visit the link below to schedule a free security assessment in your Salesforce with one of the team members of our team. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you like this content and want to see more like it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit that bell so you're notified when we post something new.